Hey everyone, welcome to today's edition of One Single Story, where each weekday we offer a brief lesson from a section of today's reading, then we examine a single relevant question that passage points us to. Today I'm joined by Wendy Korbusieski, and we're looking at a passage from 2 Corinthians chapter 8. The lesson today, I want to talk about how believers connect with others through our giving. Paul encourages the believers, so we mentioned this yesterday, he encourages the believers to complete the collection they had started on behalf of the saints of God in Jerusalem. He expresses his intention to send Titus to them in order to receive the collection and transport it to Jerusalem. But Paul does not want his motives to be misunderstood. He makes it clear that he is not commanding them to give financially. However, he does indicate that their generosity is a reflection of the genuineness of their love. What it means to us that Jesus... So the basis, what it means to us is that Jesus became poor. So the basis for Paul's appeal to the church to give is the incredible sacrifice that was made by Jesus when the apostle says, though he was rich, he was likely thinking of Christ incarnate or pre-incarnate state. So the act of Christ, the second person in the Godhead becoming man, is known as the incarnation. Imagine the incredible wealth and splendor that Jesus enjoyed before he humbled himself and became a man who dwelled among us here on the earth. Paul states that the Corinthians know very well the generous grace of Jesus. He was reminding them they had experienced a spiritual interchange in that their spiritual poverty had been turned into spiritual riches. Their spiritual wealth became the basis for their financial generosity. So here's this important principle that we can't ignore. If we're going to call people to extravagant giving, we must first call them to embrace the gospel of Jesus. Once a person has experienced the gospel and all its implications, it must be further accepted that the path of discipleship is also a path of extravagant, grace-filled giving. What we do know, is that Christ has made us rich. Jesus became poor by leaving his splendor and glory in heaven and becoming a man. He manifested himself among men. In a similar way, believers must manifest the grace of God in the lives of others. When believers generously give their resources, they are demonstrating the same mindset that Jesus did when he became poor. Generous giving allows others to see the grace of God incarnate, manifested plainly in the lives of other people. So let's talk about a couple of things here. Do you believe that Christ is manifested in the lives of other people when believers give generously? And if so, how?
Short answer, yes. So let me give you the reason then why here. If you go all the way back to creation, God has put his generosity out on display. And from that time, even all the way up through to Jesus's time, his people have always doubted that generosity. I mean, even in the garden, think about the wonder and splendor of all the generosity that was on display there. There was this seed of doubt that, God's holding out on me. There's something that he has withheld from me. Maybe there was no scarcity of resources or abundance there, but there was the seed of doubt planted that maybe he's holding out, and their sin entered in. And then, throughout the desert wanderings, there was always this whining and complaining that we don't have, when God has promised, I will provide. I am your God. I'm going to provide. I will be with you through all of these battles of Israel. I will be with you. Trust me. I'm a God of abundance, a God of plenty. I'm going to provide. And then Jesus comes on the scene, and then he himself is generosity. And through his messaging, he's even generous to his enemies. It allows people to hear his message because of his generosity. He shows up to a wedding where I've catered weddings. You don't run out of wine halfway through unless you have been very ill prepared. Okay,
Right.
very ill prepared. In his generosity, he solves that problem, which paves a way for people to hear his message later. So there's Act 1 of this paving a way for people to hear my message through my generosity, all the way through to the cross, where he is, that is generosity exclamation point,
Right.
on display. But all of that is to prove God is a generous God, and you can trust what he says. And so it's that act of generosity in other people is like, there is no scarcity. So when you can trust in God and not think of like there is no lack of resources, that I don't have to take care of myself. Like I don't have to put it in my own hands. It's when those doubts come in your mind, well, there isn't enough. I can't trust God. I'm looking at my paycheck and I can't trust that there's enough to give God what I should and take care of my family. So I'm going to take matters into my own hands. I can't trust that there's enough for me to be generous to love on this person and take care of them in their time of need and still take care of myself and my family. So I'm just going to take care of me. When we truly accept that message of Jesus and the trust in God that he is displayed in his generosity, then generosity becomes that lifestyle, and so it's through that generosity that message becomes real. It's not just about resources, it's about trusting in God. And so absolutely, through generosity, the message of Jesus is proclaimed over and over and over.
I recall hearing, I might attribute it to the wrong person, so I better be careful. But, they were talking about how that we can preach the gospel to a hungry person, but they very well might not listen because the only thing on their mind right that minute is they're hungry.
They're hungry.
Right. Even in my, and I have never been too long without a meal, not other than intentionally, right?
On purpose, right?
We all get hangry, which means that our hunger clouds everything else. And giving somebody a meal often opens the door for you to be able to talk about Christ, but they can't receive it until that need is met. It's very difficult for them to receive it. And so I think Christ is manifest. And sometimes you're just being obedient, right? You don't know exactly how it's going to play out. But once you do, then you're able to see exactly how, what their need was.
Absolutely. You're just putting that on display. You're meeting a need out of your abundance. And because of that opportunity that you've been provided to do that, not only will you be blessed, but you've opened a door, not only to meet a need that's almost inconsequential at that moment. You've opened a door for an eternity to be changed. I mean, it's so much more significance than just a meal.
Yeah.
As long as you understand that's an opportunity and take full advantage of it as the opportunity that it is.
He seems to imply that generosity should follow salvation or the acceptance of the gospel of Jesus Christ. Why do you think that is? Why? And do you think that should be a response to the gospel is we have received, we should give?
A natural outpouring of thanksgiving. You have been given a tremendous gift, and out of an overflow of thankfulness, that should be like a natural reaction. It's like one of those conditional statements. If this happens, then this is going to be one of those natural consequences of that happening, out of an overflow of your thankfulness, because it is a generous gift you've been given. And once you are opened up to that idea of the love and trust that he is wrapped around you, and that he is going to never leave you, never forsake you, that he is always going to care for you. There are opportunities for generosity all around you. Your eyes will be open and you will see those opportunities. He will place them in front of you all the time. And so he's given you the chance to share that. And I think it's just kind of like one of those if-thens, it's going to happen. That's going to be a natural reaction to that.
If you want to be generous, you will have opportunities.
Opportunities abound.
Well, thank you for joining us today on this edition of One Single Story. We hope you'll be back with us tomorrow as we continue a conversation around the book of 2 Corinthians.